All right. Let's start with that sort of opening meditation and prayer. So take up a meditative posture. If you're sitting on a bolster, try to sit closer to the front. It helps to put the spine straight. For this one, you can close your eyes. We can feel that there is a potential within us. We can also feel that this potential wants to be expressed. When we look around, we can see that everyone is hurting in some way, and that pain is making them do crazy things. That pain arises because of causes and conditions. The causes and conditions that are causing us pain can be let go of. They can be changed. New causes and conditions can be initiated or taken up that are wise, skillful, and nobly worthy of an awakened being. This will then lead to a life of freedom and true authentic happiness. A life that expresses that potential that we can feel within us. I want you to take a moment and imagine that world of potential. Imagine a life of freedom. Imagine a world where everyone is free and truly happy. What does that world look like? What does that world feel like? And how would you think, speak, and act in that world? To help us actualize our potential, we call out now to the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, masters and teachers of the Dharma, of the 3 times and the 10 directions. Please consider us with kindness and understanding, and grant us your blessings that these aspirations may be accomplished quickly. May it be that we all swiftly achieve enlightenment for the sake of all beings. You can open your eyes. Come back to us here. So, here's a riddle. I cause pain without touching. I cut deep, though I have no blade. What am I? I cause pain without touching, and I cut deep, though I have no blade. Perfect, yes. Words. You know where I heard this? Was in an escape room. It was awesome. It was awesome. Yeah. Words. So today we're looking at right speech, right? Interesting, right? Like, I cause pain without touching. I cut deep, though I have no blade. What am I? Words. I had guessed a mirror at first. Words. Yeah, but words. Yeah, words. And this stage of the path is sort of like where the rubber really meets the road, right? And one of my teachers, so I studied with these 2 Tibetan teachers who had both studied under one teacher. Mm-hmm. And I heard one of them say that their original teacher, when they were teaching the Noble Eightfold Path, they would start with right speech. They would start because they said it was the quickest and easiest way to see your mental state. That it reveals you immediately. Mm-hmm. Right? Immediately. What are the words that you're sharing, right? We've talked about burden and blessing, right? We've talked about these things, right? Burden and blessing, right? And so that they would start right there. Yeah. Right there with speech, right? Because you can walk out of here and see it right away, right? See how your speech is affecting others, right? Even your internal speech, that's a little bit harder to notice, right? Because we don't, not until you start to meditate, right? Or you get sick of yourself, right? Yeah, that inner speech. But they start, he used to teach the Eightfold Path, starting with speech. That was the doorway in, because that was the doorway that you could see it quickly within your life, right? Are you yelling at the people in your car? Right? No. What are the words that you're using with your friends, with your family, right? With strangers on the street, right? And it's a good way to go, I like it. I almost decided to start there. But I like how we started, that we start to see, and you missed it there, we start to see and notice how the world is hurting, right? And how that pain, how that hurt, how that suffering is making us do crazy things, right? And it influences our speech. And so that we could start to notice. It's easier to notice when the pain is being directed at us, when we're getting yelled at by the guy on Highway 7, right? But, whoa, like what is going on in that person's life, right? What is going on that they need to like roll down the window and right? Wow, like you are under some press, like some heavy pressure. Whoa, right? And starting with right view is that you can start to see that person isn't a jerk, but there's some sort of pain, something that's whipping them, hurting them in some way. And it's usually tied back into some sort of want, desire, grasping. I want to get this, or I want this to stop. Right? Greed and aversion. Right? We can let go of that pattern, right? We talked about it, right? That me, want, right? Mind. And what helps us do that is the Eightfold Path, right? We start with right view, where we see that, right? Right intentions, we start to get a little bit like, what are really my intentions in this? And it's usually tied into, I want something from this person, or I want to go away. Right? And then we got right speech. And we carry our speech with us everywhere. Everywhere. And you can see it. You can hear it, right? And you can see how it affects other people. Because it could be like a blade, like a whip, like a lash. Right? And it comes right out. The Buddha said, "And what is right or perfect speech? Abstaining from lying, from divisive speech, from abusive speech, and from idle chatter. This is called perfect speech." He went on another occasion, abandoning false speech. He speaks the truth, holds to the truth, is firm, reliable, and no deceiver of the world. Abandoning divisive speech, what he has heard here, he does not tell there, so that he doesn't break those people apart from these people here. Thus reconciling those who have broken apart, or cementing those who are united. He loves harmony, delights in harmony, and enjoys harmony, and he speaks things that create harmony. Abandoning abusive speech, he speaks words that are soothing to the ear, that are affectionate, that go to the heart, that are polite, appealing, and pleasing to people at large. Abandoning idle chatter, he speaks in season, speaks what is factual, what is in accordance with the goal of the Dharma and the Vinaya, vows. He speaks words worth treasuring, that are seasonable, reasonable, circumscribed, and connected with the goal of liberation and alleviating suffering, right? Yeah. Again, like, is your speech a burden or a blessing? Right? And it's not like you'll hear, like, within the New Age movement, they'll say, like, oh, you have to speak positive all the time, right? And, right? And within Buddhism, no, they don't want, but just, just be mindful of the words that are coming out of your mouth, and how are they landing on other people, right? How are they going to be interpreted? How are they going to be taken? And is this the right time to use those words? Is it the right time to use that language? Does this need soft language or hard language, right? Do you want to close this door? Yeah, I don't want to close things. Oh, it's fine. So speech is a good doorway of that. In the case of words that the Buddha knows to be unfactual, untrue, unbeneficial, unendearing, and disagreeable to others, he doesn't say them. In the case of words that the Buddha knows to be factual, true, yet unbeneficial, that's a very unbeneficial, unendearing, and disagreeable to others, he does not say them. In the case of words that the Buddha knows to be factual, true, beneficial, yet unendearing, disagreeable to others, he has a sense of proper time for saying them. In the case of words that the Buddha knows to be unfactual, untrue, unbeneficial, yet endearing, agreeable to others, he does not say them. In the case of the words that the Buddha knows to be factual, true, but unbeneficial, yet endearing and agreeable to others, he does not say them. So it's pretty complicated, right? And if you think about it, right, like just today, think about all the times where you could have been like joining in the us versus them party, right? Putting somebody like, oh, can you believe Greg today? And he was talking about the thing, you know? Like, shut up. Be quiet, right? Or you have the opportunity to steer the conversation in different ways, right? Mm-hmm. That if we come back to right view and that person wants to trash talk Greg, we know that they're what? They're hurting in some way. They have some unresolved thing that's happened with Greg, and Greg probably doesn't even know about it. Unbeknownst to him, a glance that he gave, and he was looking at his watch, and they thought Greg was giving him cut eye, right? Because this mind chattering away, right? Creating stories, and that's the thing, right? This mind is a magical mind, right? Magical, right? Do all this crazy stuff, sent us to the moon, right? Crafted this TSAT. Amazing. But, caught up in itself, thinks itself is the best, wants only what it wants, thinks about others only in sense of what they can give, how they can benefit. Right? In Buddhism, they turn that right around, right? Especially if you go with the Bodhisattva ideal, right? And it's like, oh, it's not about me, right? My life is not my own, right? My life is to be a blessing to others, to help others, right? And as long as space remains, as long as sentient beings remain, so too shall I remain to free us all, right? And that everything that you're doing is steered in such a way.
Just about the disagreement, I'm a little bit confused. Yeah. Like, is it just going about disagreeing, or what does it say? What does it exactly mean? Like, not speaking about disagreement?
No, so it's always like, you know those times where you don't agree with somebody? Mm-hmm. Yes, now, right?
Instead of
yeah, because before it would have been a conflict.
Yes.
Before it would have been a conflict. Mm-hmm. But once we can start to let go of that me, mine, we start to build some stability, we start to open our heart, the conversation changes completely. The drives change completely. Mm-hmm. The motives, everything changes completely. Mm-hmm. Right? Even like when we're like baby Buddhas starting on the practice. A lot, but pretty much it's that gist, right? That gist. And that the deeper that you go into your practice, we talked about it the other day, you become like a mountain. So that you're not moved to clash, right? And that you have a stability and you have a clarity that can see. And you probably can know, like this intuitive heart-based knowing starts to emerge. And with that, a new type of language starts to come out. And that these things like proper timing, right? Even though it might be right, it might not be the right time. Maybe you're so revved up that it's not going to come out with the right words. Maybe they're so revved up that they won't hear you. You ever been in those situations? You're not hearing me. That's part of right speech as well. Listening. Deep listening to the other person. Without trying to be ready to answer. Without trying to solve. Without having your notepad of, I read this, I heard Ian talk about it the other day, I'm ready to share it now, like, just listen. A lot of times, people are so burdened and so alone that all you need to do is just be quiet. And that what it's initially started out as an attack against you turns into a therapy session, a crying session, a session where they need some support because they feel so alone, and going back to point one, they're hurting in some way, and that pain is making them do crazy things like yell at you. Right? And that sometimes that the greatest thing that we can, is everything okay? Is everything okay? What do you mean? Right? Well, that's pretty mean. Or not nice. Why are you saying these words? The conversation changes, right? Because you have changed. You have changed. And speech, right? And it's a doorway for both parties, right? You can gain a lot and understand that other person a lot by the words that they're using, the tone that they're using, the language that they're expressing themselves in, right? Oh, let me just check the time. It's too late. No. With speech, inner speech, right? That's a big, big one. With the practice, you're going to start to see that inner monologue, hear it more often. Notice when you're being caught by it, by the stories. Making up stories all the time, right? And a lot of time, too, those stories are of defense, right? Like, oh, I did that, but what about that person? They do that all the time, and then, right? And you're building your case. And there is no case to be built. You all right there with all that?
Yes.
Yeah. All right? Inner speech, right? Start to see if you can notice that when you're being hooked and carried away. Right? Because we are, and it's very powerful, this inner monologue that's going on all the time. Catching us, whipping us up in a frenzy. Inner speech. What about those times? How often have we not spoken our truth? Right? It's delicate dance, right? It's a delicate dance. And how often have you just stuffed it down, right? Then there might be timing. But more often than not, we just keep jamming that.
Isn't that what cigarettes are for?
Yeah. I believe that. Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
I believe that. Yeah. Yeah. You got so much that you want to say, but you can't say it, and just burr, burr, burr. Smoke it down. Yeah. Smoke it down.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But that's an art as well, right? How to say no. Anybody good at saying no yet?
No.
It's new to me.
Yeah?
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 Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right.
No. When you get clear on your priorities, then everything becomes clear, right? When I decided to dedicate myself to the path, everything, it was just easy. No. What? Yes. No. It was just simple. Simple. Yeah.
So if I'm going to write speech, obviously not everybody knows what we're learning.
Yes.
Most people don't.
No.
Most people are lost in their delusions and stories.
Yes.
And those are the people in my life.
Okay.
So now at what point is it okay?
Yes.
to be compassionate, and I'm truly listening and
Mm-hmm.
trying to be helpful, I guess. At what point is it okay to say, you know what, I can't do this right now, or I can't do this anymore, because you don't want to hear the truth.
Yeah.
You don't want.
Ooh.
Like, no, I don't know that you.
No,
say
but
that.
that's a big. That
But
takes
you
some
feel
strength.
Like, okay, yeah, I've been doing
Yeah.
this for a while now. We're not getting anywhere, right? Is it okay at that point to speak?
Interesting, eh, Mary? Right?
Yeah.
It came up earlier in this week with a friend of ours. Yeah. Yeah. And the most compassionate thing that you probably can say to this person is no. No more.
No more.
No more.
You have to
You obviously aren't ready.
Yeah.
And I value myself, my time. I'm more than willing to help. But it just seems like, yeah, it's not time. No. No. And like we have such a hard time to say no, but the most compassionate thing that you could say to them is no more. And that might be the thing that wakes them up. Whoa, they are lost in their delusion.
Yeah.
And you're just part of the story until you're, by you saying no, poof, it shines a light into that moment. It breaks that moment open for them. So that might be the doorway, the portal for their pain. Right? It's tough, right? It's a delicate dance. But to say no is an art form, and yeah, it takes practice a lot of times.
Or just move in with your family.
That's a great thing about family. Family is amazing to help you see your rough parts, eh? Yeah. You think you got realization? Go hang out with them for a while, right? Yeah. It's the best.
It's the best, yeah.
It's the best. Yeah.
It's incredible.
What about noble silence? There were so many times that people would come up to the Buddha because they would hear, like, there's a Buddha. He's hanging out over in this park over here. You should go. And people would be like, whoa, and then go, hey, Buddha, blah, 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 and ask like a series of questions or stuff. And silent. So is it like this? Silent. So is it like that? Silent. And they would just leave. And that sometimes that the best answer is no answer. Right? And a lot of times he would clarify afterwards. He would say to his disciples, okay, the reason why is because the answer isn't going to help them. It's not pertinent to the goal. And what's the goal? Cessation of suffering and liberation. And he very surgical precision. Like if it's not in this category, a lot of times he'll say I teach one thing and one thing only. I teach about dukkha, pain, suffering, unease, discomfort, and the dissolution of that. The end. That's it. And so there was so many times that there wasn't an answer that would fit that program. So just silent. Right? And the crazy part is so that those type of questions are just this mind avoiding the situation of life. Right? Is there past lives? Right? You know, how many realms are there? Is there really such thing as a ghost realm? You know, all this crazy. It doesn't matter. How does that help you be free in this moment? Right? So there's lots of times that maybe it's noble silence. And it's interesting, because people are totally not comfortable with silence. That is for sure. And a lot of times, they're running off on their stories, right? And they're just quiet. And that quiet, again, might be the doorway for the opportunity where they can hear themselves being caught, hear themselves with harsh words. That your silence, right, is able to be big enough to hold that moment for them, for yourself. No. We talked about inner speech, noble silence. Sorry, today is a little bit rushed. Our Zen tea went for a little bit longer. Oh, everybody, I think we've talked about him before, Thich Nhat Hanh. So he, in their precept ceremony, their fourth precept is called, it's usually like, I vow, in most tradition it's like, I'll abstain from lying and use of harsh speech and stuff like that. So what I love about Thich is all heart-based, man. He went through so much pain, that Vietnam War, America, he was hanging out, and it was the civil rights movement. It was just everywhere he went, it was just pain. And people caught in their minds and not living a heart-based life, that it just, boom, right? He was being pierced all the time, that like his heart had to open in order to hold everybody, right? And that, so how he phrased his precepts were, instead of like, I vow to abstain from lying, it's like deep listening and loving speech, aware of the suffering caused by unmindful speech, and not to spread news that I do not know to be certain, and not criticize or condemn things of which I am not sure. I will refrain from uttering words that can cause division or discord, or that can cause the family or the community to break. I will make all efforts to reconcile and resolve all conflicts, however small. Right? That's a person that's not caught up in the me mind, right? No. Yeah. And that's like, the heart doesn't seek to divide. It seeks to unite. It seeks to embrace, right? To bring together. And that even if people seem to be in conflict, it knows that that is just a temporary thing of people caught up in stories and not seeing that there is no separation. No. And so right speech is a beautiful and immediate doorway for the path. And that there's so much subtleties to it, to the words that you use, right? You don't have to be all like namaste all the time, all right? But you can tomorrow you can start, and there's your laboratory, every word that's coming out of your mouth. Just pay attention. Don't try to tweak anything, just see how that goes. And when somebody, are you getting caught and pulled away? Are you going to try to be divisive and, right? Is a situation as bad as you want to tell it? Right? Because you want some, oh, it's terrible. Right? You want somebody to join your pity party. Right? We do. Like a lot of it, like, so, oh, there's a hard day. It was a day. It was a day. You know? Just start to be mindful of those words and hear them from others as well and yourself. From others, then it'll give you a pathway to understanding them more, how to help them more, how to be of service more, to see the pain points for them. Because we talked about it earlier this week, that like for me in the Bodhisattva way of life is that I show up in every space and I'm on call, in essence. Right? To make that space, that person, that situation better in some way. In some way. And deep listening is an amazing way to do it. Hearing their words. Using my words. Super powerful. Super powerful. What time we got here? Okay. We'll do a little bit of meditation. Okay? Okay. Okay, guys. Have a good night.